Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com, setting the record straight about the thinking of the left. One of my favorite songs from the 1960s was White Rabbit by Jefferson Airplane, with the key line being, "When logic and proportion have fallen sloppy dead." And that pretty much sums up the thinking of the left, as I'm going to show in this video. The left has no concept of either logic or proportion. Cambridge, Massachusetts is going to post climate change warning stickers at their gas stations. The warning sticker is going to say that burning gasoline, diesel, and ethanol has major consequences, including contributing to climate change. This is based on what happened during the 1960s when warnings started being placed on cigarette packages. There was a very clear linkage between people's history of cigarette smoking and their likelihood of developing lung disease. So the cigarette warnings made a lot of sense. Let's see if these gasoline warnings do as well. This diagram from the alarmist site Skeptical Science shows that about 800 billion tons of carbon dioxide gets transmitted up into the atmosphere from the Earth every year. The vast majority of this coming from vegetation in the oceans. And according to the EPA, a typical passenger vehicle emits about 4.6 metric tons of carbon dioxide per year. So one vehicle emits 0.00000000006% of Earth's total CO2 emissions. That's a pretty small number, and it shows that your decision whether or not to drive a car makes essentially no difference to the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And meanwhile, China, which is far and away the world's #1 emitter of carbon dioxide, has a new coal boom going on. China is building hundreds of new coal-fired power plants, while Cambridge, Massachusetts is telling their residents not to drive their cars. This is the latest graph of atmospheric CO2 from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. It shows that billions of people being locked down this year had no measurable impact on the rate of rise of atmospheric carbon dioxide. The amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere rose just as fast this year as it did last year, despite the fact that billions of people were locked down in their homes. Furthermore, the graph shows us that government climate agreements have zero impact on the rate of rise of carbon dioxide. What the city of Cambridge is doing is simply mindless virtue signaling. It has no impact on the climate. They do not understand logic and proportion. But the city of Vancouver, British Columbia is even worse. They tell their residents that getting gas causes African children to die from drought and famine. Let's see if that claim is true. This is the graph from Oxford University showing the share of the population that is undernourished. Over the past 30 years, there's been a sharp decline in the number of African children who are starving. And the same thing is true all over the developing world. And the percentage of the world population living in extreme poverty has also plummeted over the last 70 years by about 80%. This improvement in the lives of people is largely due to the widespread availability of fossil fuels. Because of the increasing availability of fossil fuels, people in Africa have much better access to food and medical care. Additionally, NASA shows that the increase in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere over the last 35 years due to the burning of fossil fuels has made Earth much greener. It's been known for a long time that increasing the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere makes plants use less water and thus become more drought resistant. The claims being made by these municipalities have no basis in science, logic, or proportion. 35 years ago, the press blamed drought and famine in Africa on global cooling, but now they blame it on global warming. Time magazine, June 24, 1974, another ice age. In Africa, drought continues for the 6th consecutive year, adding terribly to the toll of famine victims. When meteorologists take an average of temperatures around the globe, they find that the atmosphere has been growing gradually cooler for the past 3 decades. The trend shows no indication of reversing. Climatological Cassandras are becoming increasingly apprehensive, for the weather aberrations they are studying may be the harbinger of another ice age. Let's look now at droughts in other parts of the world besides Africa. This graph from the San Jose Mercury News shows that the West and California used to have 200-year-long droughts. These droughts are of course natural. But climate experts have determined that recent short and less severe droughts are man-made. Once again, these people have no concept of science, logic, or proportion. And here's another study of New Mexico droughts. They've had dozens and dozens of droughts over the past 2,500 years. But somehow experts have determined that a small drought which occurred at the beginning of the 21st century was caused by humans. There's no science, logic, or proportion involved in climate alarmism. Now let's look at what's really going on with cars in Africa. 1 year ago, Apple, Google, Dell, Microsoft, and Tesla were sued over child labor in Africa. Children are dying because they're being forced to mine cobalt for electric cars. The same electric cars which the city of Vancouver wants everybody driving. They're not helping African children, they're hurting them. Everything in the world of climate alarmists is inverted from reality, which was the theme of the 1960s Jefferson Airplane song, White Rabbit. The song was based on Alice in Wonderland and was about a drug-induced world where everything is out of proportion and upside down, which is exactly the world of climate alarmists and the left. These two people are the leading climate experts for the left. One is a high school dropout and the other one is an ex-bartender. They believe that the world is going to end sometime in the next 10 years. Toto is not very impressed by the thinking of climate alarmists and the left. You can visit him and Kyrie on the web at realclimatescience.com.